It's my distinct pleasure to welcome everybody this evening, particularly Bhante Vimalaramsi and Sister Kima. It seems like we're starting a tradition that they've been back here the third year in a row. I'd also like to welcome the many friends. I know that both of them have accumulated a bunch of very loyal people who are glad to hear them, and we're glad to share our facilities this Monday evening. Bhante Vimalaramsi is the head abbot at the Dharma Sukha Meditation Center in Lesterville, Missouri. He actually originally was from near Escondido before he began his training and his ordination in Southeast Asia.
Before we start, how many people here are meditators and meditating regularly? Oh, great. Okay. I don't care what kind of meditation you're doing. I want you to add one extra step. If you're doing mindfulness of breathing, on the in-breath, relax the tension and tightness in your head, in your mind. On the out-breath, relax. Add the relax step to whatever kind of meditation you use and put in a smile, and you will see dramatic changes in your meditation. That's a promise. Okay, so why don't we sit for 10 minutes? Doing whatever meditation you're comfortable with, just relax more. The importance of what I told you before we started of relaxing cannot be understated at all. It's a step that is in the suttas of the Anapanasati Sutta. It describes this as tranquilizing your bodily formation, and later in the sutta it says you tranquilize your mental formation. And it says that you do it on the in-breath, and it says that you do it on the out-breath. So you're using the tranquilizing or relaxing step to let go of tension and tightness that you probably don't even notice that it's there. This tension and tightness in your head is subtle. It's not big, gross headache. But every time your mind has a thought and it pulls your attention away, there's a tension and tightness that happens with that. That tension and tightness is craving. So you let go of the craving and you relax, you are experiencing the third noble truth, which is the cessation of suffering. The second noble truth says that there is a cause of suffering, and the cause of suffering is always craving. Craving manifests as tension and tightness in your mind and in your body. If you're doing a meditation that doesn't have that relaxed step in it, you are developing a kind of one-pointed concentration or absorption kind of concentration. Now sometimes, well, let me step back a little bit. My history in meditation is 20 years of straight vipassana. of going through all of the insight knowledges that Mahasi Sayadaw talks about. And I was not satisfied with that end result. I started looking into the suttas because I really wasn't satisfied with what I was being told. I was being told that the most important part of the meditation is being able to recognize that everything is changing, anicca. Everything is a form of unsatisfactoriness, dukkha. And everything is not self or impersonal. And that was the depth of the meditation. And when you experience that, then you have attained Nibbana. When we start looking at the suttas, we find out that actually what the suttas tell us is a little bit different than what the straight Vipassana teachers are showing us. So, when I went to the suttas, I was thoroughly amazed to see that there was a lot of talk about something called dependent origination. When I was practicing with Mahasi Sayadaw and those teachers in Burma, they said that dependent origination is incredibly difficult to understand. And the way they explained it, they were right. They used so much Abhidhamma, they used so many concepts that were so foreign that it was incredibly difficult to understand. Now, this talk is about how to overcome depression, or we can say anxiety, or fear, or anger, whatever the catch of the day happens to be. But depression sounds like a good one. Okay, we'll call it that, and how to turn it into happiness. The way that you are going to experience this happens the same way for everybody. I don't care whether you're Asian or Western. Everybody's mind works in exactly the same way. And I know a lot of psychologists that would take a lot of, not like this idea, but it does work in the same way. What happens with depression, a feeling arises, and it's an unpleasant feeling, painful feeling. Right after that feeling arises, tension and tightness comes into your mind and into your body. Right after that, then all of your thoughts, opinions, concepts, and story about why you don't like that feeling starts to come up. And you really start identifying with those thoughts and feelings. And you don't like those thoughts and feelings. Now, we are made up of 5 things. We have a physical body. We have feeling, not feelings. We're not talking about emotion. We're talking about feeling. Feeling is a pleasant feeling, a painful feeling, or neither painful nor pleasant feeling. Right after that, we have perception. Perception is the part of the mind that names things, and it also has memory involved with it. We have thoughts, and we have consciousness. Now, when a painful feeling arises, our natural tendency is to try to think the feeling and control the feeling with your thoughts. But feelings are one thing and thoughts are something else. The two never meet. The more you try to control the feeling with the thought, the bigger and more intense that feeling becomes. Until it turns it into an emergency. And then you run to the doctor and say, I'm depressed all the time, I need to have some drugs. Well, actually, don't need the drugs. You need to be more aware of how this process works. A painful feeling arises. There's craving, tension and tightness. There's all of your concepts and opinions about why you don't like that feeling. And then you have your habitual tendency. Your habitual tendency is every time this feeling comes up, I act that way. So your habitual tendency is to try to control your feeling with your thoughts. And the more you try to control it, the bigger the feeling gets until you just start shutting down. What I just explained to you is dependent origination. Does that sound so difficult or complicated? You see, this is a very interesting process when you're doing meditation. And when you start calming down a little bit and you add that relaxed step, all of a sudden your meditation changes from wanting to control, wanting to think you're feeling away, to seeing how this process works. Now you take this feeling and you say, this is me, this is mine, this is who I am, and I don't like it, and I'm depressed. And then you go hide in a room without any lights and stay there for long periods of time and tell everybody to leave you alone because I'm depressed. Who's depressed? I am. Who doesn't like it? I don't. Who wants it to be different than it is? I do. Then we have to start looking at how the process works in order to be able to recognize the steps that will help to let go of that depression, fear, anxiety, anger, catch of the day stuff. Now, when I suggested that you use that relaxed step, what I was saying to you was you need to practice right effort. What is right effort? Right effort is noticing when an unwholesome state arises, letting go of that unwholesome state and relaxing. Bringing up a wholesome state and keeping that wholesome state going. That's right effort, right? Now I have another little method that's been developed over the last few years, and we call it the 6 R's. It's recognize that you've got that unwholesome state. You release that unwholesome state and relax. You re-smile. You bring up a smile, and that is the start of a wholesome state. And you return to your object of meditation, and you repeat. Stay with your object of meditation as long as you can. So it's recognize, release, relax, re-smile. Because I want you to sit and smile. And there's a definite reason for all of these things that I'll get into in just a little bit. But you need to re-smile. Then return to your object of meditation and stay with your object of meditation. Now, when people come and they start practicing meditation with me, an awful lot of people are practicing mindfulness of breathing. And they have developed a habit of doing this practice in a particular way that doesn't have the relaxed step in it. So I come along and say, just put the relax step in it. On the in-breath, relax. On the out-breath, relax. You get a distraction, let go, relax, smile, come back to your object of meditation. Come back to the breath and relax. But they forget. Because their habit is not to do that relaxed step. What are you doing when you're practicing this way? If you don't have that relaxed step in it, you're bringing craving back to your object of meditation. And that changes your meditation not just a little bit. It changes the direction of your meditation away from the experiencing of Nibbana. How can you say you have a purified mind if you still have craving in it? What is craving? Craving is tension and tightness. It's the I like it, I don't like it mind. It's the start of the identification with the thoughts and concepts, opinions, ideas, and story about. And that big grabbing on, saying, this is me, this is mine, this is who I am. Now, somebody that has depression, I ask them a question when they come to practice meditation with me. I'm depressed. Well, when did you decide to be depressed? Did you say, you know, I haven't been depressed for a while and it's time for me to be depressed? No, it came up because conditions were right for that feeling to arise. That's karma. What you do with what arises in the present moment dictates what happens in the future. If you resist the present moment, if you try to change the present moment, if you try to make the present moment be the way you want it to be, in other words, you're trying to control the present moment, then you can look forward to a lot of suffering and a lot of pain and getting caught more and more and more until finally you have to run to the doctor because he's the only guy that will be giving you any relief at all. But when you allow the present moment to be there, even though there is pain in that present moment, you allow the space for that to be there and relax that tension and tightness caused by that mind's attention moving from one thing to another. What happens is, over a period of time, that feeling doesn't arise so much anymore. You feel more relaxed in your mind and body, and you let go of thinking. How did you let go of thinking? By letting go of the craving. Now, I just told you, there's a feeling that arises that's painful. There's the perception. That's the naming and the memory. And right after that, you have all of these thoughts arise. Now, when that feeling arises and you see that tension and tightness come up and you relax right then, what happens in your mind? When you let go of craving, clinging will not arise. When clinging does not arise, your habitual tendency doesn't arise. When your habitual tendency doesn't arise, birth of action doesn't arise. When birth of action doesn't arise, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair will not arise. What have you just done? You've purified your mind by letting go of the craving. Every time you relax, if you're doing with mindfulness of breathing, you relax on the in-breath, you relax on the out-breath. There's a distraction, you let it be, you relax, come back to the breath, and you relax. you are breaking the wheel of samsara, the wheel of rebirth. You're breaking it by letting go of that craving. When you let go of the craving, you'll notice right after that that your mind is very clear. Your mind is alert. Your mind is bright. And you bring that mind back to your object of meditation. When you're able to do that, you start progressing in your meditation faster than you ever thought possible. Now, I have a friend that came to this last retreat in Joshua Tree. I've known him for over 30 years. He's been doing meditation forever. He started long before I ever met him. He's been doing meditation maybe 40 years. And he had never run across this relaxed step. So I suggested that he use it, of course, and told him all of the reasons why. After I got through talking with him, he went back to sit in meditation. And he was having extreme problems in sitting still. All of a sudden, he added that relaxed step and he got into the first level of understanding. Now, these levels of understanding in Pali are called jhanas. Oops, that's a dirty word. Jhana practice. This kind of practice that I'm talking to you about is called samatha vipassana. It means serenity and insight. Now in the Middle Link sayings, in Sutta number 149, section 10, it says that you practice samatha and vipassana evenly yoked together. And that's what the Buddha taught. Serenity and insight happen while you are in each one of the jhanas. And there's a lot of teachers that will disagree with that. But they're the teachers that are not adding that relaxed step. So you have samatha, one oxen pulling, and the other oxen, vipassana is not so strong. You going to be going in a straight line that way? No, the stronger one's going to take you right around in a circle. Or the other way around. The vipassana is real strong, samatha is not so strong, you're going to be going in a circle. They have to be evenly pulling. They pull together, and then you go in a straight line. You can reach your end goal by practicing samatha and vipassana together. Not doing one and then switching over and doing another. That's not what the Buddha taught. The Buddha taught that they are equal, and your practice progresses so fast that way. Now my friend, who had trouble sitting for more than 10 minutes, and his mind was all over the place, when I changed his meditation over to mindfulness of breathing, which was something that he was used to. But he was real enthusiastic about adding the relaxed step. In the first sitting, after talking with him, he got into the first jhana. The next day, he got into the fourth jhana. That's reasonably fast. But what is all of this? What are we talking about with jhanas? This is what happens in your meditation. You'll be sitting along and you're going along very nicely, and all of a sudden you feel restless. And your mind's starting to jump all over the place and become very distracted. You feel like jumping out of your skin. You don't want to sit still. And what you need to do is practice this meditation that I'm talking to you right now about. You have to start realizing that hindrances are not your enemy to fight with, or to try to control, or to make them stop. Hindrances arise because of your past actions. What you do with what arises in the present moment dictates what happens in the future. So fighting with the present moment doesn't work. You have to learn how to allow the present moment to be and relax into that. So your mind is distracted. You notice, you recognize that your mind is distracted. You allow the space for your mind to do whatever it's going to do, but you don't keep your attention on it anymore. When you keep your attention on a distraction, you're feeding the distraction, and that distraction becomes bigger and more intense. And I can heartily prove that if you want to try putting your attention in a pain whenever it arises. Sit in meditation, you get a pain in your knee, or in your back, or in your arm, or wherever. You keep your attention on that, and that pain will get bigger and more intense, guaranteed. And the aversion to that pain becomes stronger. And then you start thinking about, why does this have to bother me now? Why doesn't it just go away and leave me alone? All of these thoughts about the pain or that sensation are taking you further and further away from the actual experience. When you practice what I'm showing you right now, you notice that you're thinking about a sensation in your body, you allow the space for that sensation to be there, and relax all of your thinking. Now you see there's a tight mental fist wrapped around that sensation. You don't like that. That's aversion. See, hindrances don't come up one at a time. They kind of like to gang up on you. So you have restlessness and you have aversion to the restlessness. So you have to be able to recognize both of them. So you allow the space for that restless feeling to be there, and you allow the space for that feeling to be no matter what. The truth is, when restlessness arises, it's there. Isn't that profound? When it's there, it's there. That's the truth. The more you fight with the truth, the more you try to control the truth, the more you try to make the truth be the way you want it to be, you can look forward to suffering. So what can we do? We have the suffering already. We're restless. We can allow the space for that restless feeling to be and relax the tension and tightness caused by mind's attention moving away from your object of meditation and getting caught. When you let go of that tension and tightness, you notice that your mind is clear, your mind is bright, your mind is alert. And when you let go of that, you bring that mind back to your object of meditation. There's a little bit of relief. Third Noble Truth, cessation of suffering, little relief. But the restlessness is still there and pulls your mind back to it. Fine, it doesn't matter. What you do with what arises in the present moment dictates what happens in the future. If you allow the space for that restlessness to be there but don't keep your attention on it, it gets weak. And the weaker and weaker it becomes, the longer you're staying on your object of meditation without that restlessness pulling you away. finally, you finally let go and it's gone. What happens now? Relief. Major relief. And you start to feel happy. You have a lot of joy arising. The joy will be there for a little while. You can't keep your attention on the joy. Pain, joy, doesn't matter, same coin, different sides. You have to allow the space for that joy to be. Come back to your, relax and come back to your object of meditation. Eventually the joy will fade away and you will feel very, very comfortable in your mind and in your body. You'll feel very strong tranquility. And your mind just kind of stays on the object of meditation. But you can still have a distracting thought occasionally. You see it very quickly. Very easy to let it go, relax and come back. Now I just described to you what the first jhana is like. There's a lot of relief in that. How did you get the relief? Not by fighting with the hindrance, but by allowing the space for that hindrance to be and relaxing and coming back to your object of meditation. Now, what's the definition of mindfulness? Anybody? Definition of mindfulness? I always love these kind of questions. Oh, being aware, being mindful. How many times have I run across people that have tried to give me those kind of definitions? Mindfulness is remembering to observe how mind's attention moves from one thing to another. It's remembering to observe how mind's attention moves. When you start to get a little bit calm with your meditation and your mind's on your object of meditation and a distraction happens, you'll start to see that it didn't all of a sudden just jump over here and there's this hindrance. That there's a process that is involved. And what you'll start to see is right before your mind got really taken away and you're 1,000 miles away thinking this and that there was a little something that happened right before your mind got really distracted. So you're away for a little while and you relax and let it go, or let it go and relax and smile. Bring up that wholesome object and come back to your object of meditation. The next time you get distracted by it, as soon as that other feeling happens, you relax and let it be right then. And now you're not distracted for as long a period of time. Now you come back to your object of meditation and you start staying on your object of meditation for a little bit longer period of time. You can still get distracted. Okay, it's fine. The hindrance is your teacher. The hindrance is teaching you how dependent origination actually does work. You'll start to see it. And it is teaching you these lessons over and over and over again. That's why I call a jhana a level of understanding. Almost everybody that gives you the definition of jhana, they will tell you that it means concentration. No, it doesn't mean concentration. It means that you are starting to teach yourself how this process actually does work. There's a lot of definitions that are being used these days that don't agree with what is said in the suttas. I'm a big sutta person. I practiced 20 years of commentary and found out that I had 20 years of practice that didn't lead to where the Buddha talked about. Yes.
As you're hooking up the Vipassana asana to work in tandem, how do we keep the understanding part, the progression of the level part, from being yet another form of clinging?
Because you see things without thinking about them.
That makes sense.
Okay, you're seeing them every time you let go of that craving. You are developing what the Buddha called wisdom's eye, which means if you don't have any craving in your mind is pure. Because there's no craving, there's no clinging, there's no habitual tendency, there's no birth, there's none of these other things. So, every time you bring that mind back to your object of meditation, the insights that you start to get are what happens right before my mind gets really carried away. And it turns into an, oh wow, look at that, there is something. Those oh wows are insights. And they happen while you're in the jhanas. Real interesting stuff. And as you go deeper in the jhanas, you start staying on your object of meditation more. You start going through a different kind of understanding of the process. And it becomes more and more fascinating. Now, this friend that went through all of these jhanas so fast, he was so enthralled with what he had learned that he'd never known before. By going through each one of these different jhanas, and even though it was fast, he was gaining the insights. I talked to him after that. He said, I don't want to talk very long. I want to go back and watch. This stuff is great. And the meditation actually becomes fun because you're teaching yourself how the process works. Incredibly important. I mean, the Buddha spent 45 years teaching dependent origination and the Four Noble Truths. He added a lot of other stuff, but the core teaching is dependent origination and the Four Noble Truths. Now, the Four Noble Truths and dependent origination are interconnected, they're intertwined. And I'll read you part of that so you get some idea of it. Okay, now this is the Samyutta Nikaya, the Book of Causation, page 543. This is 14 for ascetics and Brahmins. At Savatthi, monks, as to those ascetics and Brahmins who do not understand things as they actually are, the origin of these things, the cessation of these things, and the way leading to the cessation of these things. That's just the Four Noble Truths I told you about. That's there. Okay. What are those things they don't understand, whose origin they do not understand, whose cessation they do not understand, and the way leading to whose cessation they do not understand? They do not understand aging and death, its origin, cessation, and way leading to the cessation. And it goes through every link in dependent origination. The Four Noble Truths are mixed in with dependent origination. This is important stuff. You gain more and more insight into how the process works, and you will go deeper with your understanding in ways that you never dreamed possible. There was one lady that she was a therapist, I think. And she came to the retreat and she listened to me talk about dependent origination, and she listened to me talk about the hindrances and how to overcome the hindrances, and she wanted to argue with me. No, that's not the way it works. It works this way. By the time the retreat was over, she was just going, yeah, this is it. That's the way it really works. Ain't no doubt about it. Why was she doing that? Because she saw it for herself, not because I convinced her. She was willing to follow the directions closely enough that she started progressing. And with that progressing, her understanding started blossoming. And she was teaching herself. I wasn't teaching her. I was reading the suttas, saying, okay, this is what it says right here. And then she would go back and sit down and go, wow, that is right. This is the thing that makes the meditation so much fun. It's not that you're going to hit these plateaus where nothing happens in your meditation. It doesn't happen. Not when you add this extra step of relaxing. Yes?
I just started and took my first meditation class, and one of the techniques that we were taught was when you have a thought come through that you could just recognize it or label it and let it go. How is that different from, I'm not quite understanding.
You're letting it go without relaxing.
So that's my question. How do you relax around a thought?
Okay. Yeah. I got a brain.
Being from the forest, it's a squirrel's brain.
Okay, now the brain is made up of two lobes, right?
Uh-huh.
And there is a membrane that goes in between the lobes and around the outside. Every time there is any kind of thought that arises, that contracts. Okay, when you let go of that tension or tightness in your head, in your mind, you will feel expansion.
So it's a physical relaxation you're trying to
And
do?
mental, both.
Okay, so my question to you again was, how do you do that?
You have to be able to recognize that it's there.
Uh-huh.
Okay, make a fist. Let go of the fist. How'd you do that?
That's the release.
That's the relaxation.
No, that's the first part.
Oh, okay.
It's being able to see that there's tightness there and allowing the space for that tightness to be there. And then, after you let go of that fist, you relax your hand.
Uh-huh.
How'd you do that? By letting go of the tension in the muscle that was holding your hand up.
Mhm.
Now, the smile step. The importance of smiling while you're doing the meditation cannot be overstated either. Why? It's a wholesome state. You're bringing up a wholesome state. That's great. That's following the right effort, right? The third part of right effort is bring up a wholesome state. You smile and you're doing that. What does a smile do? It helps uplift your mind. So let's get back to our depression friend. What's the last thing they feel like doing?
Smiling.
Ah. And what does that do to their mind? It makes their mind heavy. When you start smiling, your mind becomes light. Joy arises more quickly, more easily when you're smiling. What's the big deal about joy? Joy is great because your mind is alert, Your mind is very agile. And when your mind starts to get heavy, you can notice it really quickly. And you can let go of it very easily. And you can recognize that tension and tightness more easily. So the more you smile, and I'm not talking about only while you're sitting, because there's a wrong idea about meditation that's going around in this country in particular. And that is sitting like a rock and not moving. And that's what meditation is. No, it's not. Your meditation is your life. And all life is part of your meditation. If you start smiling more, you'll start noticing negative mental states more quickly. When you're sitting in meditation and a hindrance comes, do you think that's the only time in your life you ever have a hindrance? You see what I'm saying? We have these hindrances attacking us all the time. If you're not able to recognize it, then you're just going to fall back into your old habitual tendency and cause yourself to suffer. Well, don't do that. How does your mind feel now when you start smiling? Isn't that nice? Your mind is uplifted. Your mind is really alert. The more you smile, the more clear your mindfulness becomes. I had a student, he was in Australia, he'd been practicing breathing meditation with a monk in Australia. He'd been doing it for 6 years. He could sit in meditation and he would get very deep into his bliss. He got out of meditation and he got very deep into his hindrances. And he was super depressed. So he's writing to me on the email. So I say, okay, I know you've been doing this practice for 6 years, but let's add the relaxed step. But he would forget because his habit was not to have that relaxed step. And finally I said, okay, I want you to let go of that meditation. I want you to practice loving kindness meditation. He had so much resistance to loving kindness meditation. Oh, it's so noisy in there, and I have a tension in my face. And finally I said, now listen. This is enough. And he's kicking and screaming the whole time. And I finally said, I don't want you to sit and do any meditation for 1 week. What you got to do is smile. All the time. To everybody. And when you can't smile, I want you to laugh. Now this is really simplistic practice, right? It sounds so easy, but it's not. It's hard. So I didn't hear from him. I told him I wanted him to do for a week and then write back and tell me what his experience was. And I didn't hear from him for a week, and I'm thinking, oh, there he goes. And he writes back to me and he said, I really took what you said seriously and I really tried it. For a whole week I smiled as much as I could. And I noticed this. I noticed that when I was walking, generally before I walk around in a mental haze, looking down, not ever looking at anybody around me, and my posture started changing and I started standing up a little bit straighter and I started looking around and finding out there's actually people around me. He was so much into his thinking that he didn't notice that before. And then he said, and they started smiling back at me. Nobody ever smiles at me. And he said, even when I didn't feel like smiling, I smiled, and it helped. I asked him about his mindfulness. He said, oh, my mindfulness is so brilliant now. It's unbelievable. I can see when my mind's starting to get heavy, and then I start letting it go and relaxing and smiling some more. And the doctors, and I went, doctors, that are giving me the drugs, where are you, friend? Oh, I'm in a mental hospital. They started giving him less and less medication as he developed his smile more and more. They told him that he was such a severe case of bipolar that he would never get out of the mental institute for the rest of his life. And 6 months later, he was living outside. And that comes from smiling. And even when you don't feel like smiling, even when it feels like it's a painted on smile, I don't care. See, there's a lot of studies that are going on with smiling and the advantages of smiling and laughing too. And one of the things they said was that even when you don't feel like smiling, you smile even though you feel bad and you feel like angry and not happy. Your mind starts looking at you going, but you're smiling, so I must be happy if I'm smiling. And it changes its mind. Now, what's the big deal with laughing? When you laugh with yourself about how caught you are, you're not caught anymore. This is powerful stuff. You walk around, somebody says something you didn't like. What do you think about it? What do you think about over and over again? Same words, same expressions, just like it was on a tape deck. If you see that you're doing that and laugh with yourself about how dumb it is, all of a sudden you go from, I'm mad and I don't like it, to, it's only this anger. Who needs that? I don't need that. It's easy to let it go. Simple instructions. Smile and be happy. Laugh. Try it for a week. You'll find out that the meditation is life. I'm not kidding. This is really powerful stuff. If it worked for this guy in Australia who was such a severe bipolar that they told him he was always going to be on drugs, of which he's on very little right now, and he's never going to live a normal life, of which he is living now, this stuff must work. The meditation starts to get to be more and more fun as you make it more and more fun. The more you smile into things, the easier everything becomes. Now, what happens when you get into this habit? You sit in meditation and all of a sudden your meditation starts improving. You start staying on your object of meditation longer. You start feeling a sense of relief more. You start going through stronger and stronger balance of mind. Equanimity. This is really important. The highest feeling that you can experience is equanimity. When you get deep in your equanimity, nothing is going to upset your mind. Nothing. Somebody comes up and they read a riot act and they start yelling at you, and you look at them and you go, okay. No biggie. And then you find out what their real problem is and you say, okay, let's see if we can solve this. because it's not what they were emotional about. When you start developing your equanimity, you start seeing the world in technicolor. You really do. It's not black and white anymore. It's not different shades of gray. You start seeing colors and they become more and more vivid. Why? Because your mind is starting to settle down. You recognize when your mind is starting to do its mental rubbish, thinking this, thinking that, getting all excited about this or that. You really start to experience more and more calmness and contentment. You want to overcome depression? Smile. Laugh. Last thing you feel like doing, but it's the thing that needs to be done. Why? It improves your mindfulness like you can't believe. You have no idea what mindfulness is until you start practicing smiling all day. And smiling into everything. Now, meditation is not just sitting quietly. Meditation is made up of 3 different things. This is what the Buddha said. The first part of meditation, practicing your generosity. How can you practice your generosity? In body, speech, and mind. Say something that makes somebody else smile. Be kind. Do something that helps somebody else. Think uplifting thoughts. And radiate those thoughts to your friends. Whoever your friends are. And if you don't have any friends around you, radiate to everybody else. That's practicing your generosity. Oh, generosity, that means you start hiding your wallet. Monk's talking about generosity, he must want something. Yeah, I do. I want something desperately. I want you to be happy. And this is the way you start. You practice smiling and giving that smile away. Isn't that being generous? Not just a little bit. You help other people. You think kindly of other people. You want to improve your mindfulness? That's the way. Practice your generosity. The next part is keeping your precepts. What precepts do you have? Don't kill or harm living beings. Don't take anything that's not given. Don't have any wrong sexual activity. Wrong sexual activity with someone else's mate, or if you have a mate with someone else, somebody that's still under the care of their parents or guardians, going to prostitutes. That's wrong sexual activity. Basically, it comes down to this. Don't have any sexual activity that causes anyone else to be upset, including yourself. The next is about speech. Don't tell lies. Don't use harsh language. It's shocking coming back to this country after being in Asia, listening to the radio with all the cursing that's going on and the sexual innuendos. On television, it's the same thing. And people are starting to use this kind of coarse, foul language all the time, like it's supposed to be okay. But you don't look at your mental states when you're doing that. You don't see the dissatisfaction and dislike when you start cursing. So don't do that. Don't spread bad rumors that'll divide this group from them or that group from these. Don't gossip. What is gossip? Talking about this or that person and making up the biggest stories you can think about. Saying things that are complete lies, but saying them in such a way that somebody else might believe them. Don't do that. Don't take drugs or alcohol. A little bit of wine now and then doesn't matter? Yes, it does. It dulls your mind. And it causes you, when you take the precepts, it causes you to have a guilty mind because you know you shouldn't be doing that. Well, but just this one time, it doesn't matter. Yes, it does. Keep your precepts without breaking them, and you will improve your mindfulness 2 or 3-fold. Because it makes you aware of what you're going to do before you do it. And then you can make the decision of whether to do that or not. It helps with your general mindfulness, just like smiling helps with your mindfulness, but that's a little bit more specific. Now, these 6 R's that I've been talking about, recognize, release, relax, re-smile, return, repeat. 6 R's. You roll your R's. This is like a process. You don't have to do each one of these steps. You see that your mind is distracted, you let it be, you relax, you smile, you come back. It's like a flow. And the more you can practice this flow with your daily activities, the more uplifted your mind becomes and the more aware of your surroundings and the people around you. You become happy. You become uplifted. Okay. So I've been talking for a long time. You got any questions? Yeah.
I have a question. Friday night, I was at a teaching group, and in the first 5 minutes of meditation, I was kind of laughing uncontrollably, and that's never happened to me before.
Uncontrolled laughter is not what I'm talking about. I mean, this is kind of like chuckles that I'm talking about. Uncontrolled laughter happens because of an emotional release of one form or another, but you're still identifying with it. You're taking it personally. So you want to, what I'm talking about is just a little chuckle to yourself about how crazy your mind is. Welcome to the human race. We all crazy. And it's okay to be crazy. It's more fun when you're crazy. Just don't identify with it. Smile with it. And laugh and let it be. Yeah.
What is the object of meditation?
That's tricky, because a lot of people here are doing different meditations. I'm not sure I can give you one definitive thing. But when you use the relaxed step, every time there's a distraction, and you relax while you're staying with your object of meditation. So if it's the breath, or whatever your other meditation happens to be. If it's loving kindness, it's a radiation and making the wish. But you relax. You have to keep doing this over and over again. And that you become much more alert to how the process works, and you will go deeper and start experiencing true personality change. People that don't have that relaxed step can be some of the most attached people that I've ever met. They think they're right, and by golly, they're not going to listen to anybody else, and that's it. But it doesn't lead to their happiness. Yeah.
Hi, thank you for being here tonight.
My
My
pleasure.
question is about how to handle difficult people, like coworkers, or I work with high schoolers that curse all the time. What are some tips or recommendations to handle that in that situation?
Tell them don't do it. I'll tell you what, there was a guy that, right by where we live, there's a big project. There was a 500 million gallon reservoir broke. Now they're fixing it. And he has all of these workers and they get angry. And there's like 10 or 12 of them that came to him. And they were ready for blood. They really were angry. And he walked outside and he said, "Wait a minute." And he started laughing out loud. Just started really hee-haw. And he did it for about a minute. And then he said, "Okay, now I want you guys to do the same thing." And he got them to start laughing. And as soon as they started laughing, then that huge problem that they were going to have blood about, all of a sudden they were able to discuss it.
In the realm of depression, do you believe that there is ever a role for medication?
I have to say it depends a lot on the person that's depressed, who they go to, and if they're willing to practice what I'm showing you right now. They'll be able to overcome depression fairly quickly. I was in Seattle, and there was a woman that came to one of my talks. And she'd been to a couple of them. And she gets panic attacks. Now, she started to get a panic attack while I was giving the talk. And she's listening to what I'm saying. All you got to do is just relax, smile, all of this stuff. And she said, generally, when a panic attack comes, it's a 2-day process to overcome it. Now, while she was sitting there, she said, "If this stuff really works, we're going to find out right now." So she started relaxing and allowing that feeling to be there. Not trying to change the feeling, just allowing the feeling to be there and relaxing. And she put a little smile on her face. And she came back to her loving kindness. And she was bouncing back and forth, and 2 minutes later it went. So instead of a 2-day process, it was a 2-minute process. This stuff works. That's what the Buddha said. This is immediately effective. How many times have I run across people like myself that have done 20 years of practice, and we hit these dry spots and go, "God, I don't think I'm going to continue with this. Nothing's happening." And of course, I always had the teacher that say, "Well, if nothing's happening, just grin and bear it. It'll start happening again before long." You don't need to do that. You have a practice that it's been a few years and you feel like you're not going anywhere, it's time to start looking at that and saying, "Wait a minute, there must be something else here that doesn't happen with what I'm showing you." It gets to be more and more interesting and more fun as your understanding deepens. It's really nice. I don't get bored. I'm studying this stuff all the time, and it's so exciting that it's just unbelievable. I keep on running across new stuff, and I might have looked at one sutta 100 times, and I pick it up and look at it again and go, "Wow, look at that. I didn't think of it that way before." It's really exciting. It's really fun. And that's what's missing in the spiritual path these days. Everybody gets over serious. And when they get over serious, they stop smiling. And they stop laughing. And then they start trying too hard. And the harder you try, the less progress you are going to make. That's my biggest problem on retreat. People come for the first 3 or 4 days, they start talking about, I got these headaches. And you're trying too hard. Headaches don't happen when you have balanced energy. But when I'm trying to accomplish something, then I'm going to cause myself to have some headaches. You become more and more relaxed. You become more and more balanced in your mind and in your body. It's kind of fun to be around some people that come for the retreat. They get into their equanimity and they walk in and say, well, how's your meditation? They say, fine, everything is fine. Good. Anything exciting happening? No. Their mind is in such strong balance that nothing is going to knock them off. Oh, there's a fire on top of your head. Okay, I'll take care of it. Anything else? You mean everything I told you is so clear? That you don't have a question? Yeah.
I'd like to see your name written down or have some way, because I can't hear how your name is spelled, so I can't look you up anywhere.
Well,
I've got a card.
Oh, yeah.
somebody gave me.
He actually does have a great website where you can
Yeah,
find a lot of his
We'll put the
teachings.
website on, so I can speak that.
And thank goodness if you miss a letter on it, Google will correct you.
You know where to start.
Can you spell your name?
My name.
Your website?
You just have to give that back. Thanks very much.
Somebody gave me this. It's so fancy, it just blows my mind. So I turn it into a game, you know. It's like, look at this, I'm an important person. I got this fancy thing.
Thank you.
I think that we've very nicely reached the end of our time. I really would like to express our appreciation to Bhante and to Sister Kima for visiting us again, and we trust that you will be back with us again next year. Thank you all.